I'll join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Good, palms down. All right, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all here. Every so often, and I haven't told this story, I think, in a couple months, so I don't know how many of you have heard it or not, but every so often I have this flash of a memory that goes through my head when I'm doing my offerings in front of the shrine. And this was, gosh, probably 8, 9, probably 10 years ago. And we were at the old Buddha Free location, and we had just kind of outgrown the little space that we converted into a meditation hall. And so we created another space into a meditation hall, and it was a whole new shrine setup. And so for me, my background, very formal, very traditional, very strict, very rigid Buddhist practice, which is not at all what I lead, don't worry, if you're here for the first time. But that's my background with it. And so I have certain things that I do personally that are important to me. And so we had, set up, and there's the shrine, and doing the first class in the new space. And I was used to kind of my normal routine with the half bow, 3 full bows, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm in my head, it's, even I don't seem that way necessarily, but in my head, it's a very formal practice. And like I said, it's special to me. And so all of a sudden I go to do my first full bow, and boom, I just hit my head on the shrine. And I didn't know what to do other than just laugh. And so I just laughed. And it was for me, a really beautiful, I think, moment in my practice, because there would have been a time in my practice years earlier where that would have really bothered me. I would have been so stuck in that ego of uh-oh, here they are watching some Buddhist person lead a thing, and they just hit their head on the shrine. That would have really bothered me at one point in time. And I was able to just laugh through it, and I thought it was really, so every so often when I go to do my half bow and I'm standing a little closer than normal and I take a half step back, I just have this flashing memory of when I hit my head on the shrine. And I think it's also, every time I bring this up, it's really just a reminder for myself, really, and just to share, to not take everything you do in life so seriously. I mean, there are so many things in our lives that we take so seriously. And we physically, mentally, and emotionally kill ourselves all day long, because we think what we're working on and what we're doing is the end of the world if it doesn't happen. Or this life-changing thing, or that we're going to alter the universe in some way, or that we're going to save all the whatever, just because we do or don't do one little thing. I'm not suggesting that the things we do or don't do don't have an impact. That's your karma, of course it does. But so many of the things that we get so frustrated, irritated, annoyed, bothered with all day long, in the grand scheme of things, are really minor. Not all of them. There are very serious things that happen each day. I don't want to discount that. But look at the average thing that triggers you, bothers you, troubles you throughout a day-to-day basis. It's usually not the heavy, life-threatening, life-altering, traumatic situations. It's little stuff. And if you can begin to take day-to-day life with a little sense of laughter, it makes life a lot easier. The stresses, the chaos, the pressure, the expectations that we put on ourselves to be these like perfect little humans, you know? Last story, and then we'll start with the meditation, since that's why some of you are here. So we just had to visit Megan, our dear friend, and McCarthy, who is, 13 months now. And as I was wrapping up that story about taking things like a little bit lighter, I had this flash of McCarthy downstairs, and Megan was carrying her on the, I'm sure there's a baby name for them. I don't want to just call them a harness, but maybe that's what they are. Any new moms out there, dads, know what I'm talking about? The harness thing in the front, with babies in the front, right? Y'all with me? Okay, so there's McCarthy in the front, and 13 months, right? So McCarthy's not, words aren't really formed yet. But McCarthy nailed, it's all she's got. You get a few da's, you get a few ma's, you got a few but she just nailed. And so she spent like 20 minutes in there with this little piece of paper that we turned on the airplane, just throwing it up in the air saying, and just laughing. And just laughing. And I was like, we should just do that more. Next time you make a mistake, next time something doesn't work the way you want it to, just say, maybe it won't ruin your whole month. Just say, like a 13-month-old. And now what? And she just kept doing it over and over and over again. And she was having a ball. So I don't know if there's a lesson there, but maybe there is somewhere. It works for me. So, all right. So with those deep esoteric teachings, we're going to do some meditation. Welcome to those who are joining virtually. Thanks for chiming in. There's a chat box somewhere on your screen. So feel free to say hello. A couple things to tell you before we begin, especially for those who might be new. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. Don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps sliding in the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten, shoulders are relaxed. Hands are on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. If you need to move, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator. It just means your leg hurts. And for those who are brand new, you're not trying to think nothing. You're not trying to empty your thoughts. You're not trying to go blank. We're just going to sit and breathe. I'll say things periodically to remind you that you're lost in thought or to wake you up and bring you back to present moment. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into silence. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments of the practice. Just sitting. Breathing. the body still, rested. And the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, the practice of meditation. To recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samutpata, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where we come from or what we believe in or where we think we're going, our whole life is filled with things that happen. We react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. Meditation is not an escape, as often people think it is. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation is not going to fix it. It simply helps you become aware why your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, so you can then make changes in your day-to-day life. Meditation is direct perception into the present moment, being with life as it arises. And the present moment is filled with conflict, chaos, challenges, difficulties, struggles. It's our inability to be with these challenges as they arise that cause so much suffering in our lives. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. Sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do in every moment. That's it. This is our karma. What we think, what we say, and what we do. Body, speech, mind. It is our every moment of our entire lives. And so the practice is to learn to be mindful, aware, or careful, as I like to say, of our karma. What are we thinking? What are we saying? What are we doing in every single moment? And what is our intention behind every thought, every word, and every action? This is not easy, but suffering sucks. So this is the practice. And it just repeats every moment, every day of your entire life. To me, I don't complicate this practice. I keep it very simple because the simple stuff I think is hard enough. To have absolute pure intention with body, speech, mind, thoughts, words, and actions at every moment of your entire life. I can't imagine anything more difficult than that. So if there are advanced teachings, I'm definitely not ready for them. It's the simple stuff. It's being aware of what you're doing all day long and what's your intention behind it. How does it impact yourself and those around you? That's the practice. So fortunately, we have so many things throughout our day that create wonderful moments and opportunities to practice. So hopefully you'll all say, uh-oh, a lot more. But I will say, before I open up to questions, and I had this thought as my head flashed around to a million thoughts as meditation began, just for those who are new, or those who maybe had this idea, or maybe the idea wouldn't pop into your head until the moment occurred. But my suggestion, often I have to put an asterisk next to things I say as a disclaimer. My suggestion is, next time you're in an argument with a loved one, family, friend, whatever it may be, or whoever it may be, and they're really pissed off and angry at you, my suggestion is not to just say, uh-oh, walk away. Because they won't like that so much. So careful how you use that.
Doesn't work at work.
It doesn't work at work. Yeah, there's a lot of places you can't do that. So with this crowd, I need to put an asterisk next to most things I say. But yeah, so you use that wisely and carefully and cautiously. And sometimes you can just say it in your head and probably keep it silent. Might be a lot better, So with that, I'll, as always, really just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that's on your mind, and we'll use the rest of our brief time this evening for that. And for those who are, again, virtually joining us, welcome. There's a chat box on your screen somewhere, so feel free to put questions or thoughts there, and I'll do my best to respond. So questions, meditation, Buddhist practice. Yeah. Hi.
I have a question about, I went to a yoga class and there's always like a mantra. And so that they can change mantras all the time. And I'm curious more so around your take on the use of mantras, and because I kind of felt like it's creating just a story that you're telling yourself. And you made a comment earlier about, we're not perfect, that we can't be perfect, we can't strive to be perfect. And a lot of these mantras are about like making yourself better and that type of thing. So do you have any thoughts on personal mantras or telling yourself mantras and how they create a story in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, as usual, I have way too many thoughts on that, especially when the question starts with "I was at yoga," because and I mean that, I mean that very seriously, because there are so many parallels between the two practices, and also so many drastic differences.
This was yin yoga.
Okay, either way, there's, like I said, there's a lot of similarities just in general, and also a lot of, drastic differences. And, at the time of the Buddha, yoga was practiced, and I mean, they were yogis. The Buddha was a yogi, Siddhartha was a yogi. They were practices done to prepare themselves physically to then sit in meditation, right? So very different types of yoga, just like many different types of meditation. And I'm not a yogi, so just get that out of the way now. But a lot of times people get introduced or exposed to things in yoga that will come up in Buddhist practices as well. And so your question, for those who maybe didn't hear it, was just around mantras, the use of mantras. So the first thing I'll say is, I'll never forget, somebody asked, and this was about 17 years ago, somebody asked my master about mantras. And her response was, it doesn't matter if you recite Namo Omitofo, which is pay homage to Amitabha Buddha. It doesn't matter if you recite the Buddha's name, Jesus Christ, or Coca-Cola. This was literally the response. I mean, it was in Mandarin and it was translated to English, but, and the point was, what the mantra is in and of itself, this was the response, isn't important. What's important is, where's your mind, where's your heart, where's your focus, where's your intention in the use of the mantra. So if I'm just reciting some mantra to save all beings from suffering, but I'm thinking about the pizza I'd rather be eaten, then whoever I'm throwing that prayer and mantra out to probably knows I'd rather be eating pizza than saying this mantra right now, right? So that's one view. The second view is, or the second view that I'll share, is that mantras are a really beautiful practice. And there are endless mantras within Buddhism, within Hindu practice, within yogi practice, right? All that stuff. And one of them, for example, super common, Om Mani Padme Hum, is the great compassion mantra, right? It literally means the jewel in the lotus. So this, in the middle, the statue of Kuan Yin, her name means hearer of the world's cries. She hears all the suffering in the world and pours out compassion to heal. Again, literal translation, hearer of the world's cries. Often seen holding a vase or pouring a vase of compassion. Kuan Yin's mantra is Om Mani Padme Hum, the jewel in the lotus. It is considered the great compassion mantra. Right? You ever seen big prayer wheels, right? Or the old Eddie Murphy movie, a lot of people have seen it, where he's like, I want the knife, right? So those are called prayer wheels. And on them are prayers of compassion. And in Nepal, you can walk by and just turn the wheel. And the idea is that as the wheel turns, you're sending compassion into the world. It doesn't even need to be said. Prayer flags have the same idea. They're hanging all over the place and the wind just blows through them. They're sending the prayers, right? That's one mantra. Mantras are beautiful as a point of focus and as a point of intention if it means something to you. But if I just say, hey, Katie, here's a mantra, I just want you to recite it 1,000 times a day, and you don't know what it means, and it's in another language, and it means absolutely nothing to you, then what's it really doing? Unless you understand it, and it's been explained to you, and your intention is wholeheartedly in it. But a lot of people with Buddhism get wrapped up in like the cultural stuff and the language stuff and the, it's from 2,500 years ago in India stuff, or Thai Buddhism in Thailand, or Tibetan Buddhism, whatever. We get wrapped up in these kind of cultural things, and we just recite things to recite things. But we don't even know what they mean. So they have no special meaning to us. But if reciting Coca-Cola means, and I truly believe that if I recite Coca-Cola, that you'll all be happy, then I'm going to recite Coca-Cola every single day. Because that means something to me. So I'm just not a personal fan of reciting things just for the sake of reciting them. Personally. It doesn't mean they don't have merit or value, right? It doesn't mean to say them without knowing what they mean isn't a beautiful practice. But if you're going to have like your own mantra and it's going to mean something to you and you're going to, put it into your life, I think it helps to really have a connection to it. You can literally YouTube mantras and you can spend the next 20 years playing mantras and listening to them, and they can be beautiful. So, yeah, that's what I got. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah.
Where should I put my home shrine?
Good
I
question.
was thinking a living room, but kind of cluttered there, bedroom maybe.
Yeah. So the question was, where should I put my home shrine? So creating what I call sacred space at home is important. We go to the kitchen. Why? To make food, to eat, right? You go to the bathroom. Why? I don't need details. To go to the bathroom, right? There are certain things we do in certain places. And creating a sacred space at home is the same. Now, years ago, I remember, especially working with college kids a lot, right? You got like, and even some of us today, you got 4 people crammed in a tiny little space, right? And all they have is like a corner and a skateboard and a shoebox, right? And I remember with this one kid, Mike, years ago, and we literally like created a little shrine in about the size of that corner, right? With the skateboard and a shoebox and a little Buddha statue. But there you go.
Yeah.
Deep, deep mantra right there. And that space meant something to him, right? So where you create a space and how you create a space is important, which is the nature of the question. So then think about, what do we do in a space, right? It's interesting because a lot of people in Western culture, like, we see Buddhist statues, most Western people, as it's introduced to the Western country, it's like these artistic things. But they're sacred statues, right? In the Thai culture, Thailand, right? When we took over the old Buddha for you. So in the Thai culture, you would never have a Buddha statue below eye level, right? We had one Thai grandma one year, years ago, like really upset. It was like a store of Buddha statues. Like they couldn't all be up here, So there are certain cultures, certain rituals, certain practices. And similar to the mantra question is, what's your intention behind it, right? I would not put them in the bathroom, right? Buddha statues are not, our kind of Western world of spas and relaxation, right? There's our bubble bath, there's our candles, and there's our pretty little Buddha statue, right? Wouldn't put them in the bathroom, right? A lot of people have them in the bedroom simply because if they share spaces, apartments, things like that might be their only quiet space that they have. So then my suggestion would be, take it away from the bed and maybe not facing the bed. So if you had a bed and then you had, your room, kind of have it set up so it was not staring at the bed. But to me, they're meant to be treated, respect, which I understand is the nature of your question. They're meant to be treated with respect. These are our sacred spaces. So I think finding a sacred space that feels right to you is important. And you set it up somewhere and you sit with it. And if it seems right, then you sit with it there. Right? If not, then you move it. You can have it in the living room area, as you said, and maybe it's something for other people to see as well, and maybe a reminder to get quiet and centered and peaceful. So it just kind of depends on each living situation. Ultimately, there's no wrong place, but I always suggest don't put them in the bathroom, and not over the bed. Yeah. Does that help?
I think so.
Yeah. Try it out. You'll see. If your intention is to sit in a beautiful sacred space with it, when you set it up and you sit, if it feels right, then you're good. Yeah. Yeah. Other questions? And I think it's important for everybody, statue or not, to have a space at home that you sit. Like I said, you don't need much, but have a sacred space. It could just be a chair staring at a wall with a flower. That's all you need. But have a space that's what you do in that space. And it becomes important in that space to use that space with that regard. Yeah.
What would be the next step to delve a little further into the practice?
Were you kind to everybody today?
Yes,
Were you thinking good thoughts all day long?
for the most part.
No, I didn't ask for the most part.
Yes.
You thought good thoughts all day long.
Fair.
Fair?
Yes.
It's not tricky. It's just asking you to be honest. Did you think good, pure thoughts all day long?
No.
No. So that's the honest answer. So the next step is to work on thinking good thoughts all day long. I mean that with as much sincere, genuine honesty as I can say. People often say they want to go deeper with Buddhist practice, as if they're digging something, right? There's nowhere else to go. There's just pure honesty with myself that says, did I think good thoughts all day long? Did I speak good words all day long? And did I do good deeds all day long? Not mostly, not fairly, not sort of, not kind of, but honestly.
Yes.
Answer those questions to yourself. You don't need to broadcast them. You don't need to let anybody know. But ask yourself those questions. And when you can do nothing but think good thoughts, speak good words, and do good deeds, and not gossip. Did you gossip about anyone today? Did you talk about anyone else? There you go. No slander, no gossip, no talking about anyone else. Did you have any judgments about anyone else all day today? Really? Wow, you are just one enlightened being, I'm telling you.
Pretty much alone today.
Pretty much alone. Did you judge yourself today?
Yes.
Yeah, well, then there's more practice for you. Right? That, to me, is the depth of this practice. I've been calling this Intro to Buddhism for 14 years, and if I'm alive another 14 years, I'll be doing it the same way. This basic practice is hard enough. I could pile on a bunch of books, a bunch of things that say advanced Buddhism in front of you. They're all going to be telling you the same stuff, just with fancier words. You know? Try to go the rest of tonight. It's almost 8 o'clock. What time do you go to sleep?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. So you have 2 hours to try to not judge yourself. And then if you do by some chance judge yourself in the next 2 hours, don't critique yourself for judging yourself. There's your advanced practice for the evening.
I got it.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. What else? Thoughts, questions? Yeah.
You may have kind of touched on this with
Sure.
that last answer, but I was thinking about, you said something to the effect earlier about if, as you do the practice and you become more aware of what you're experiencing or thinking in the moment, then you can change it. And I was just wondering about thoughts about when you are aware of destructive patterns and you find yourself continuing to do them.
Yeah, what do we do?
Thoughts about that?
Yes, what do we do when we know we're aware of our thoughts, we know our thoughts are destructive, as you said, and yet we just keep doing them? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, it is.
Does that happen to anyone else in this room? And if their hand is not up, they're probably lying to you, right? So this is the hardest practice.
Simply tough.
Ask yourself, when you do these things that are destructive, do you suffer from that? Do others suffer from that? Depends on whether the things we're doing that are destructive towards us or others. It's, one or the other, and many times both. So part of this practice, first, the awareness is, yes, that's key, because a lot of us have spent most of our lives not even aware of our destructive patterns and habits and behaviors. And then we wake up and we're like, wow, I really am greedy. I really am angry. I really am selfish. And I've been this way a long time. And I want to change, but I can't. It helps to understand that those destructive patterns and behaviors are harming people. People that you know and people that you love. And even if they're destructive towards ourselves, that still has the ripple effect of harming others. Very few situations could I imagine where we're harming ourselves and it doesn't have an impact on somebody else, right? Maybe a bit of a reach, but just using that as an example. And so understand that it's painful when we get hurt, right? So if our destructive habits and patterns are hurting others, we're putting others through that same pain. Part of this practice is recognizing that hurting other people is no way to spend your life. And you have to feel that. You have to see their pain. See them cry. See them devastated. See see them destroyed and crushed. And if it's not happening currently, reflect on those moments. Without hating yourself, without judging yourself, without thinking you're a terrible person, but recognize that pain that we have caused so deeply in others because of our destructive patterns. And I believe, and this is the root cause of our suffering, is greed. Right? This has a lot to do with greed because greed is very selfish. When we come out of the sense of self and out of a place of greed, we recognize that we're hurting people. And we make them equally as important as we are. And we must remind ourselves every single day, I do not want to hurt loved ones anymore. I do not want to hurt strangers anymore. I do not want to hurt myself anymore, who is a loved one and a stranger all at the same time. I know this practice deeply because I spent 25 years of my life hurting people deeply. And I don't let one day go by, truly, that I do not reflect on all the pain that I've caused in people's lives. And when I say I think about it every day, what I mean by that is I reflect on it versus what I did when I was younger, which was dwell on it, hate myself for it. But I remind myself of it every single day. Because those destructive patterns and behaviors can come back just like that. Unless I remind myself that I do not want to harm people anymore. Does that make sense? We must feel their pain. And this makes it not about us, about them. Because we're often not strong enough to do it ourselves. Not an easy practice. So, yeah. All right, so I'm going to close on that. There's a question here real quickly. Any advice on changing little moments of frustration that arise during the day into something more beneficial? I'm going to default to what I talked about at the beginning and just say, uh-oh. I don't know if you heard that, Lisa, but, 13-month-old baby just kept throwing a paper in the air saying, uh-oh. And since you are asking about little moments of frustration, meaning these are not life-threatening situations, I think if we can just say, uh-oh, and kind of find humor and laughter in them, that alone will turn it into something more beneficial. Because if we don't get wrapped up in anger and frustration and hatred in that moment, and we stop that anger from arising, that in itself is beneficial. Sometimes just stopping anger is enough. We don't have to stop anger and then go save the world. Just stop anger from coming out. And that's incredibly beneficial. So I hope that helps. All right, so we'll join palms as we close. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. All right, just a few quick announcements before you all head out from our Dharma Bum host, David.
You steal my line every time. My name.
Sorry.
Hello, everyone. I'm David, your Dharma Bum host for tonight. We opened up the Dharma Bum Temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers. They're not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice with others. Almost every night we have different classes led by people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone battling addiction. And our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 5 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We also have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and bring it back whenever you are done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushions before you head out. Thank you for being here, and we hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.